What I wanted to do is talk a little bit about kind of what we are here for, and then talk a little bit about Canopy, where I'm coming from, and what we offer, and then open it up to our panel members to talk about what they do, and then we'll have plenty of time after that for Q&A. So some of you may have gotten here because you are already members of Canopy Employee Assistance Program or have us as your EAP. If you've gone to any of the trainings, I may have been the trainer, so if you recognize me. So I am now the director of training at Canopy, but my background is in clinical work. So I've worked in mental health, addictions treatment. I'm also a Reiki practitioner, certified, and also certified death doula. And through the work that I've done, both kind of on the clinical side and organizationally, I've seen more and more of a need and an interest in grief support. And I think sometimes we forget there's so many resources available to us that we may not even know is out there or how to access those or who to even ask. And so that's what I wanted to do today is talk about these resources available. How can you access them? A place to ask those questions, and also, when we talk about grief, there are so many different types of grief. So, this is a space where we're talking about all of those types of grief. And Canopy, if you have us as an EAP, we provide free counseling services. We provide free resource retrieval. So, if you're looking for any additional resources and you need help finding them, we can help you with that. We offer life coaching, legal consultations, financial coaching. All of that's free to folks who have us as an employee assistance program. At the end, I'm also going to put up a slide of the links of all the panelists' websites and information and all of that. So you'll have that available as well. And I wanted to also, I'm trying to think if there's anything else Canopy specific. I think what I'll say also with the Canopy piece is if you are looking for free mental health counseling with us, that is available for individual counseling, couples counseling, or family counseling. And folks can, if you are reaching out to us for that free counseling, you can do that virtually or in person for those services. And our main office is located in Tigard and outside of Portland, but we work nationwide. So if you are looking for services outside of the state, we have plenty of people on our panel. And you can also ask for counselors who have a specialty in grief counseling. So there are so many resources we can help you with in terms of that. That's free, confidential, and easily accessible to you. So what I wanted to do now, and again, we can go back to anyone during Q&A if anyone has any questions for any panelist, but I really wanted to make sure we had time to hear from the panelists and their expertise. So I wanted to start with Sasha from the Grief House. If you'd like to talk a little bit about everything that folks do over there and more information, we can start from there.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm one of the founders of the Grief House, along here with Laura Green, who will also be sharing. The Grief House was founded in 2020, located at first just in Portland, and due to necessity with pandemic, most of our offerings at the beginning were virtual. We started off thinking we would be a hub for resource grief resources, which we definitely still have that element to our work, but a lot of our work has been collaborating and holding space for folks to be present with their loss. And we work with people who are grieving all kinds of loss, from death of a loved one to things not turning out the way they anticipated or expected, divorce, moves, estrangement. I mean, that's just a few. And we this came about, and Laura, I think, would be good to speak to this more in a moment, due to both of us experiencing a need
Sometimes talking
for.
back to unhelpful thoughts might look like I tried my best, or it was out of my control, or there are
Can we hear that too? Yeah, there we go.
passwords that are impinging right now.
But yeah, we wanted to have a space where folks could be present with the hard things, present with grief in community, not isolated, and find a way to metabolize grief and loss and be with it. And kind of invite it along on our journey. And so we do all kinds of things from working with art, clay, puppets, yoga, sound, song, writing. We do series. We have potluck dinners and grief spills. We hold things virtually still in Portland and also now in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I'm based. So yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell on one dimension, but I'm going to pass it over to Laura. I don't know, Laura, if you want to fill in about our philosophy or um, anything else I missed, which was a lot.
You do a good job. You do such a lovely job of bundling a thing into a package that is like deliverable. I tend to be much more sort of like watery in my approach. I think one of the things I love about the project is that it's largely community led. So in many, many cases, the gatherings that we offer, that we support, are led by people who came as grievers. And that feels like the community that we're hoping to make, like a community of people who are not a community where people are identified as like well or broken or grieving or post grieving, but a community where everyone feels both like a resource and like a recipient, like that we are the food and we are hungry. Where when it first started, I was before pandemic, actually, I was grieving the loss of my cousin to suicide. He was young, and it was hard. And pandemic came kind of fairly close on its heels, and I spent a lot of time in the woods during pandemic and during shutdown, and just watching how a non-human directed system deals with loss was incredibly useful for me. It felt like just seeing that in that system, loss wasn't hidden and it wasn't shameful, and there wasn't a loss that was insignificant to the system or that was too large for the system, this healthy system to manage, made me wonder if that could be true about my loss. And that sort of idea kind of forms one of the real root balls of our philosophy that or the experiment of underneath the project. So we're really interested in just like identifying all loss as potential food, as like figuring out how grief can come and metabolize it to sort of free up whatever nourishment is like locked in. And in Portland, we also are beginning to focus more specifically on death and as and building a group of people who are really, some of whom are here today, who are really skillful at helping us as a community reimagine how we might hold each other and ourselves while we're dying, and bring that back into our homes, into our families, and find our way to a relationship with it that feels more balanced and potentially beneficial. I think that might be us.
Yes, just to something just to add on before I pass it back to you, Caitlin, to continue moving around. We don't have part of our work is in being sturdy and reliable facilitators, holding space, not as people who have the answer. We also don't think grief is something that needs to be fixed, just like in the in nature, as Laura was saying, where it can hold everything. We're kind of helping folks, we're holding space and working with folks who are themselves grievers, to hold space as well, so that people have time to practice and to be present with their own loss. Because as our culture, we have a very hard time, being present with the hard bits, with the very painful, messy aspects of being human, being an animal. And so we're just trying to help make space to practice that messiness. So we do messiness well. So I'll end on that note. Sound good?
That sounds great. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of everything that you shared, both of you, and this is so helpful. And as a reminder, I'm keeping an eye on the chat as well. So we will certainly have plenty of time at the end for Q&A, but I have that up. I'm keeping an eye on it. I already added the links to all of the resources in the chat. So anyone who's here live viewing it, if you go in the chat, you're welcome to highlight those, download those, whatever you'd like to do. So just as an FYI, those are in there. I'll also put them up on a slide later on for folks who are watching the recording. But Allison, if you would like to go next, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure, I'm happy to be here. So my name is Allison Day, and I was introduced to the Grief House and their work, and I'm happy to be a collaborator. I am from a corporate background myself, and like they expressed, the pandemic was a turning point for me in terms of really having some self-reflection on uh, the fear of death and loss, and knowing people who uh, died during that really tragic time that we all lived through. And in that space, decided to learn more about death, became a death doula myself, and really became more aware than I had ever been around both the pain, but also the beauty and of death. And that prompted me to explore what I consider the first death, which is uh, becoming a birth doula. So I became a birth doula and really got connected to this feeling and this idea that the birth in and of itself was similar to that experience of unknowing, having the baby in the womb who is in this perfect environment, perfect temperature, perfect nutrients, everything available, and then thrust out into this unknown space, this unknown world of bright lights and noises, and feeling that vulnerability. And so being exposed to both birth doula work and death doula work, it was really amazing to see this full circle expression of what I thought of as life's transitions. And that's the work that I started to do with many people individually, is to help them navigate the different transitions that we experience in life. And as both Sasha and Laura expressed, like these are not always specific to death, but they can be. And my own experience experiencing the loss of a baby in childbirth really made me connect more to what it means to bring life into the world and also lose life suddenly. And when I think about transitions and how they impact our life, really connecting to what it means to experience an ending and then sit with that, connect with that ending, connect with that loss, and really feel that wholeheartedly and compassionately, so that we can think about what our identity looks like moving forward, and prepare for a beginning, a new identity. And I learned in doing this work through transitions, all transitions, as Sasha mentioned, there are transitions of losing a job, getting a promotion, having a child go away to college. There's so many different transitions that we experience. They can be welcome transitions, the birth of a baby, but there's still that connection to the identity that we had, to the things that we are holding on to, and the things that we need to let go of. That I've worked, with people who sometimes just need support along the way as we go through those experiences. So my focus has really been on helping those navigate different life transitions, death being one of those, death being one that we'll all experience and we all need to navigate. But there are so many that people need support working through. And so connecting with the Grief House and seeing the work that they do and the space that they provide to hold uh, time and care and nurturing and just the sensitivity around this space has been a really beautiful experience for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And I so appreciate everyone being on this panel and sharing their story and the work that they do. And so thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to introduce Bruce Plato next. He's also my dad. Hey, Dad. So if anyone was like, wait, you have the same last name? Bruce is my dad. And you will be talking about your work with Hopewell House. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Bruce Plato. I am representing Hopewell House. Hopewell House is a licensed residential care facility that's dedicated to care for those people at the end of their life. And it's been there since 1987. It's a residence. The people that lived there before donated the house at that time to make it become a Hopewell hospice house. It's gone through several iterations. Right now, I've been a volunteer for 11 years, but I'm also on the board. And so when I say we, I'm talking about us as a group. Legacy owned it for many years, and they sold it in 2019. It looked like it was going to go under, but through the community, through the grassroots effort, it has been resurrected, and it's now going full bore for the last 2 years. Like I said, I started volunteering about 12 years ago in resident care. We have about 160 volunteers who do everything from resident care like I do, to gardening, to making sure flowers in every resident room, quilt making, helping with the kitchen. So there's lots of people involved in Hopewell House. And the goal ultimately is to make sure that when people die, they die with honor and in a way that they want to die and the way the families want to die. And everyone has a different way of doing that. And we work really hard to honor that with every one of our residents. We have 12 rooms. I'm going to go back a little bit. The house that we received, we added a wing that has 12 rooms now. So it's 12,000 square feet, and it's on 4.5 acres. So when I said we had gardening volunteers, they take care of all of the grounds, all of the pathways. We also have professionals who volunteer their time to help with different types of therapies. We have everything from massage therapy, and this is for the residents, their families, or our staff. Reiki, acupuncture, sound therapy, aromatherapy, animal therapy, musical therapy. We have people that come in and volunteer and play the harp, play the piano, come in and sing. We have people that bring in their animals to meet with the residents. So there are lots of different options for our residents. And again, the goal is to make them feel at home. It doesn't feel like they're in a hospital. It feels like they're at home. And that is our goal. We have nurses there 24/7 for care. We have a chef. We have a professional staff of about 15 who paid people that run it. And we offer 3 different types of grief counseling. And I'm going to go through those real quick because I understand that's why we're here. There's a community grief ritual, and I'm reading here. I apologize for that, but I think it will give you a better idea of what we do. It's offered every 3rd Monday of the month from 6:30 to 8 at Hopewell House, which is in Southwest Portland, if I didn't mention that. And grief ritual is a practice of transforming individual and collective grief within a supportive community. In a world where we often grieve in isolation, this gathering offers a space to share, process, and honor grief in all of its forms. Whether you're mourning tangible loss, experiencing existential sorrow, or navigating a challenging transition, all grief is welcome. This is an in-person drop-in that requires no RSVP. Simply come as you are. We're honored to hold a space with you. And all of these are free, and they are all open to anyone in the Portland metropolitan area. The other grief support group is it's offered through the year, and registration is required, and the groups run for 6 weeks. And it says at Hopewell House, we offer grief support groups designed to help individuals who are grieving the death of a significant person. These groups provide a safe and welcoming space to share personal experiences, explore coping strategies, and build a supportive community through peer discussion. Our grief groups follow a 6-session format, meeting every other week over 12 weeks. Sessions are held in person at Hopewell House, with options for afternoon or evening meetings to accommodate diverse schedules. To ensure an intimate and supportive environment, group sizes are limited and RSVP is required. Once a group begins, it becomes closed to new members, fostering trust and connection among participants. We welcome members from the greater Portland community, and offer new groups throughout the year. And we typically hold those groups to about 6 or 8 people in each one. And the last one is honoring the grief journey. If you're mourning the death of a loved one or loss of any kind, this workshop provides tools and practices via interactive processes and sacred rituals for navigating loss, grief, and healing. In our supportive community setting, you'll have the opportunity to shift your focus from external events to internal transformation, and you will learn to accept and embrace impermanence, understand loss, pain, contraction, and expansion, develop practice for opening a wounded heart, create personal healing rituals for processing strong emotions, and find gratitude and grace in life. Again, RSVP is needed, and all of these are run by trained professionals who are volunteering their time to run these groups. And again, they're free and open to the community. It's just something we offer through Hopewell House. So there you have it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. All right. Serena, did you want to share now?
Yeah. I'm a little overwhelmed with just the amazing people on this panel and all of the offerings. I come from a background where it was kind of a perfect transition. So I grew up in my parents owned hospice care homes, which is similar to Hopewell House, but it was on a smaller scale. So growing up in that environment, I was really baptized into end-of-life rituals and care through that lens. I am now a funeral director and facility manager of a Renew Natural Organic Reduction, which is a fancy term for composting. It is something I am incredibly passionate about, returning people and pets to the earth in this transformative way. And my lens really is on creating and helping people through that end of life and death transition process. I'm here to help people create those rituals and what feels right to them. Yesterday, we had a very beautiful, I call it a tucking in ceremony, where family members came and placed their loved one into our compost vessel called a chariot. And they had a celebration of sorts. And they each brought something that was a symbol of their love to this person. So there were coffee, there was donuts, there were chips and salsa. I will say there was a few shots of Patron at the end, with a very joyous end of life salute to them. And I have a lot of experience on this side of things, so I like to open people's eyes on the possibilities of how they can honor their loved ones and support them through that difficult end of life change the best way that I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And I'm so appreciative of everyone on the panel and everything that's folks are sharing. We have one other panel member, Jamie. I was going to check. Sometimes folks' Zoom names are different. So, Jamie, are you here with us? Perhaps not. That's okay. So I do have the link. Like I said, we've got all the resources up there in the chat. I'm going to share my screen really quickly just for the folks who are watching the recording so they know they have access to that. If you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask that or type it into the chat. We have plenty of time, and certainly if you have questions about EAP services or how we can assist with any of this, I can answer that. And so I'm going to share my screen so folks can see the slide, and then feel free if you have questions, let us know. All right. Can folks see that? Yes? Good.
Yep.
Okay. My classic virtual training. Everyone see my screen. That's going to happen at some point in every virtual training. So I just wanted to have that up real quick. And if it's easier for folks to use the hand raise feature, I don't want to miss anyone if you do have a question, but wanted to put this up for a couple moments just so folks watching the recording can see that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see if the hand raise feature is going up. I don't want to miss anyone. While I'm waiting to see if there's anything, because I think sometimes it's kind of processing the information we get, or sometimes a question is someone's typing it, and so it can take a moment to type that in. To kind of bring it back to the intro and why I wanted to, one of the many reasons I wanted to put this together is, again, I think sometimes we forget how many holistic approaches and resources are available for grief support. And particularly in my work at Canopy, we talk a lot about, and we offer those services for counseling, and counseling is absolutely wonderful and so helpful for so many people. And that's why we have that as one of our offerings. And for other folks, something else may be what they're looking for grief support. And if there is something that you are wanting, or maybe from this panel today that you've learned about, and you may not be local to the Portland area, but you've heard some of the resources today, you can always, if you have us as an EAP, you can reach out to us and say, I live in this state or in this city. Is there something similar in that area? Can you help me do research for that? And we can help with that. So, I brought folks in, and I know a lot of us are kind of local to the Portland metro area, but these services are not. And so we want to really make sure that everyone knows that they have resources and access to the support that they need. And everyone's grief process is unique to them. And so anything we can help educate folks on that is why we're here. I know that in the chat, someone had asked about if they could share those links on their own site. Please do. And as a reminder, of course, sharing our information, we, of course, our services are available to people who have us as an EAP. That would just be that one kind of caveat for our link. But otherwise, that's why we're here. So I will stop talking for a moment in case anyone else has a question or wants to unmute. Or if there's anything else from any of the panel members that you forgot to mention or were thinking about since hearing other folks, if there's anything else that you wanted to share or talk about, feel free as well. We're just here as a resource.
Looks like there's a question. I was going to say something, but I don't know if you want to address the question first.
Sure. Yeah. So with the EAP members, so the way that Canopy works, we contract with different companies. And so if a company uses us as their employee assistance program, that contract will be in place. And every company has a different contract of how many free counseling sessions are available. So if you are curious about your specific contract of what's available in terms of number of counseling sessions, definitely reach out to us directly if you have us as an EAP. You can call us, you can email us, and all of that information is on that link to our website that's in the chat. And if people do reach out to us and have us as an EAP and they start with the free sessions with a counselor we refer them to, we always will ask in that initial referral what their medical insurance is and connect them to someone who is also on their insurance. So once those free sessions end, they can continue with that same counselor under insurance and aren't having to switch again. So we really want to make sure there's that continuity of care. All right. I am happy to have another panelist answer Jennifer's question if you'd like. Someone wants to.
I can answer in terms of the death doula. Yes, I specifically work with end of life care. So people will reach out specifically if someone, if they or someone they love is facing end of life care and is looking for a death doula. So I would say that in addition to that, though, I do work with anticipatory grief and loved ones who are experiencing that as well. So knowing that someone is going to die soon and really wanting to have support in navigating that, that would be something that I would support as well.
Thank you.
I could say a few things about death doulas. I think a really interesting thing about this role is that it is very diverse. And to some extent, it depends on who you meet. And also, but also, it's my understanding, and Allison, please, that there's just a lot of flexibility. Like for some people, what the support that they need when someone's dying is really practical support. It's like, I don't know how to do the paperwork. I'm confused about what appointments I should make. I don't know what my options are for where they might die and who might help. For some people, it's more just companionship. Like I just want someone to see me and be with me and be able to. It's in the cultures in which many of us live, it can be really uncomfortable to go to work or go to the store and have to sort of shut down or hide the part of you that is carrying this death with you. That I'm actually in Mexico. My father's family is in Mexico, and in this tiny town, it's 3,000 people. There's a church bell, and it rang this morning. There's a certain ring for when someone in the town dies, so that everyone in the town knows that someone's died, and that sort of carrying is really rare. So it could be helpful to have someone who is, who's your devoted companion, who's I do want to talk to you about this. So it's my understanding, and Jamie is here now, and she knows a lot more about. Jamie and Allison together know a lot more about this, but that a death doula role can look like many, 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 many things.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And Jamie joined. I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yes. Thank you so much for letting me join late. I had dog emergency this morning and it just threw me off. But here I am.
That is completely fine. Not a problem at all.
That is life and
death, right? Totally fine. So we are, the other panel members have talked about the work that they do, introduce themselves. I know you just joined. If you're willing to, if you can just,
absolutely,
if you're comfortable with that, and then we're kind of just go back to our Q&A.
Yeah, and it sounds like you were just getting into what a death doula was or does, and I'm happy to kind of talk a little bit about that. So it's a great way to intro myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie. Thank you so much again for allowing me to join late. I am a death doula. I'm also an end of life and grief educator. So I spend a lot of time doing webinars and kind of educational sessions about grief, about loss, about death and dying. I also work hands-on at the bedside with people and do all sorts of different things, whether that is kind of respite, kind of caretaking, doing legacy projects, really guiding families on how to caretake and support their loved one, being a point person for kind of facilitating or coordinating support and care for somebody. And then I also do community grief work. So I run something called Queer Grief Club, which is kind of a resource space and online support place for the LGBTQ community. I really recognized this kind of space of looking for more queer specific grief spaces, and really struggling with that when my partner and I were experiencing a huge loss, and we were showing up to grief groups and feeling just feeling even more alone in our grief because of our identity and the different things that intersected with our grief that people really couldn't understand, or we felt like we had to explain more. So I created Queer Grief Club, and it's a really sweet and wonderful place. And I feel so grateful to do that work. And I am so grateful to be in community with the people at Portland Grief House and with Serena and everyone who's on this call. And it's I find when we are doing this work together, it's such deep, rich, and moving work, and it connects me to the most wonderful people. And so yeah, I'm so grateful to be here today. And if I didn't say, I practice in Portland, Oregon, but I also see people all over. So I have clients from all over the world, actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. That's wonderful. So I'm glad to hear that information, and I'm so appreciative again of everyone being on the panel.
And here's Sylvia. This is not the one causing trouble today, but she loves the Zoom call.
I know, now my cat's back there, so blending into the couch. So we're having a cat pet moment.
Makes Zoom calls bearable, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in the chat again, everyone who, there was a few questions that came up here. If there's anything further that people had, if you've typed in questions that you had follow up to the questions you've typed, please let us know. In terms of the just additional resources around potential grief support or any type of group therapy support, I put in that Psychology Today link. You can search by zip code, you can search by topic of group, age range, virtual or in person. So I always, recommend that. I know in terms of the Canopy piece, right now we don't provide or cover group therapy, but it's so powerful and helpful. So I'm glad someone asked about that. And other panelists have shared resources that are offered as well, but that's a really great one. And then the Dougie Center. So Sasha, thanks for adding that in. Anything else that attendees had questions about, or there was something that any of the panelists had wanted to share or mention?
I'll just add too, for a grief resource, that death doulas are a really great grief resource, and I've found that just searching individual death doulas, a lot of people are starting to put out their own kind of peer support groups, or thinking outside the box. Like I know of someone in Portland that does a weaving and grieving group. And I've done different art groups. I've done gardening work groups. So there's a lot of different ways to also, if a support group if that feels intimidating, think about what are your barriers to entry? What are the things that maybe might help you get a little closer to your grief, but in a way that's accessible to you? And maybe sitting in a grief group feels intimidating, but going and gardening next to someone who's grieving is a different way to access your grief. So just being open to what different possibilities are out there.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll say,
yeah, go ahead.
And again, I know that we're sort of interested in talking about grief as a general, as from all loss, not specifically from death. So, but since this is a topic that we're on right now, and to that earlier question about whether a death doula is available to support and guide after death, I would also just like to yes, I think that also the support, like Serena's work supporting people in caring for their beloved's body, like in the moments after death, moments and days after death, has been when my mother died in our her house in the grief house 2 years ago in August, and I had a fairly robust for I think compared to the average person, a fairly robust community of people to support me. And I wish I didn't know Serena at that time. I wish I'd had Serena because I think about how important and useful it would have been to have someone who had experience supporting me in being with my mother's body. And like though that support following that support and guidance in that really physical, practical, but very emotional way is available, and I think is hugely helpful for many. And like you are saying, Jamie, knowing that there's more than one option, knowing that there's not there, and for some people, the sort of traditional or the uh, whatever, not traditional, because traditionally death and burial was very different in all cultures, but sort of the mainstream approach to death is perfect. That's offered in, like a funeral home is perfect. But if you're someone who is looking for something different, for whom that doesn't quite fit, there's many, many, many ways to get support. Or maybe just many, maybe not three many.
Well, I was gonna offer too with death doulas. For me, it feels like providing aftercare for a big event that has happened. And so I think grief and bereavement like come hand in hand with that. And for I think a lot of people go through the experience of death and they don't get that aftercare, they don't get that processing. It's kind of you go through the death and then you are expected to grieve in this way, but a lot of people are still processing like what the actual death looked like, what that sounded like, what it felt like to be in the room if they were there. And that's like a piece of grief that doesn't get to be talked about a lot because, people are like focusing on the loss of the person, or there's just so much, or they feel like they can't talk about that. And so that's like a death doula is a really great place to be like a processing support or to help explain even kind of like, okay, so you were there when your person died, and what was that experience like for you, and how does that change your worldview right now? How do you feel that like that changed you? Because it does.
I will add that, someone mentioned here, I think earlier, and I think about this regularly now at this work, the one thing we're all going to do is die. And we're really uncomfortable. Like between now and then, we'll all do all kinds of things. Who knows? But it's so uncomfortable even for a lot of people to be like, oh yeah. And I feel like grief work in general allows us to get familiar, get used to, get comfortable with, get to know grief. We see a lot of people come into the grief house who have really, because they've been conditioned to and been expected to, have walled off the accumulated grief in their life. And only when a very significant, like tidal wave of grief comes, and they realize that their coping skills are severely compromised. And it's a really hard place to start that work, but it's, start where you are. You start where you are. And that's why having someone, a lot of services and support around end of life, when this, even for folks who haven't done any of this work, it's like, oh boy, here it comes, having all that support and then being able to do things like Jamie, you were saying, maybe you want to garden in a place where you could be crying, and that's okay. And that's so much of what we do at the Grief House, virtually and in person in our 2 locations, is just provide opportunities for people to be with their loss and do creative things, move their bodies, make noise, talk, share, and we have different kinds of gatherings. Like I see a question here about um, support for partnership through death of a child. We don't have a specific offering for that. We do have the children's table in Portland, which is for folks who've lost a child. Um, and we have some relationship groups as well. But here's the beautiful thing about there's always opportunities for new types of gatherings. Most of the time, we like to include all types of loss, all types of grief, because that makes a diverse and healthy ecosystem for us to all get nourished from. With that said, sometimes grief wants to hang with like grief to really move, and it needs that. And I think, this kind of offering, this kind of thing could be really important because it's a very unique kind of grief. All right, I'll stop talking for now, but happy to talk more.
No, that's super helpful. I mean, I'll quickly say in terms of for anyone, in terms of that question, for anyone who has us as their EAP, again, we offer free individual, couples, or family counseling. And anytime people are reaching out to us for those services, we'll ask, if they're looking for a specialty or any kind of preference to make sure they're getting a good fit for a provider. If they're looking for other resources local to them beyond just the mental health counseling, we can also help find those or connect them to resources in whatever area they're in. So that's what I would say in terms of that the Canopy piece can help with.
And at Hopewell House, we offer group counseling. It's not focused on partnerships, but we certainly would welcome couples to come in and be part of that in the small groups.
Great. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat.
But I'd like to just pop in and say about my journey with the Grief House is it's been such a beautiful unfolding that naturally happens easily. And the connections that I see happening in the groups that I've been participating in are magical because it's not just like this is the one topic that we're talking about. It's a fluid conversation typically, and the way that people connect and find people in shared grief, they learn from each other, and that's what I love is this community. I kind of like to refer to myself as an outdoor cat sometimes. I enjoy my solitude, but being able to connect in a community where you genuinely feel supported. They really care about you as a person and the energy you're bringing to the world. So just a beautiful resource, and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, because you will be rewarded and supported through that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Laura, did you want to share? I saw you on.
I might just say, yeah, I think support for partners through the loss of a child is a really, it feels really important. I don't know everyone's experience, but I know that I have loved people who lost children, and there is a way in which it can feel, or in these experiences where it felt quite isolating because it is so scary to people to think about the fact that children die, and I think sometimes when people are going through that, it can feel hard to have to metabolize everybody else's response to your pain, because it's so painful for so many people to even contemplate, to even like allow as a possibility. Like so often people are like, well, I would never, just would die. I just wouldn't be able to make it in, which seems so simple, but you don't, you don't die, not just from it. And so it does feel really important to find support. It feels really, really important to find support. And I don't know, like I think about your work, Allison, like helping people move through transition. I think the other thing, I don't know the specifics of this situation, but I'm thinking about these some other people that whom I know whose child has a terminal diagnosis, but they don't it's been and they it was really scary to approach a death doula as a resource because it feels like, oh, but we're hoping that maybe we won't, like, what if we don't want to say the word, we don't like want to invite the thing in. And I think in some ways your work, Allison, which is more just about like helping people move, like actually be, and you should speak to it more. I mean, I know you speak to it better, but the way I understand it is helping people be alive and like present. Like your child is here now. Like we are a family. Like be alive, be able to have the resources to be alive and present during each moment of a transition. It just seems like invaluable to me.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I was actually going to add just how you mentioned that people don't expect children to die, and in working with a lot of parents that have lost more infants and babies, have specifically worked with this type of loss and see how isolating it can be, how incredibly painful it can be because there is you belong to a group that, of course, no one expects to have to experience. We all know that people die with age, and we can accept that, but to accept the death of a child, a baby, is really something that no one really ever expects to go through. So processing that, and then I was going to offer that Sad Dads is a resource. I know specifically for fathers who've experienced loss, but just acknowledging also the toll that it takes on relationships as people grieve differently, and to be in a couple and to experience the loss together, but to grieve differently can really have quite an impact on your relationship, on the family dynamic. So just acknowledging that, and then thinking about from the aspect of transition, uh, what what we can do to take care of ourselves and our loved ones, our partners through that loss. As Laura said, it seems like life will just end, and at the same time, it does go on. And so, how do we give ourselves the grace and the compassion to navigate that type of tragedy in a space that is safe and nurturing, and allows the extraordinary amount of time that is needed to process that pain. Thanks for putting that in the chat.
With that question, I actually messaged one of my collaborators and participant turned collaborator here in Georgia. Her son died by suicide 3 years ago, and she and her husband, similarly to what you were saying, Allison, the journey was unique and shared and complicated. And in her, she's talked a lot about how helpful it was to have groups for her and then groups for him, and just to have, and you might be in the same group, but it might also be nice to have outlets so that you can really work through your own part, your own, that may or may not be in conflict with your partner. Now the resource she shared with me is specific about loss from suicide, but I'm going to share it in the chat here as well. But regardless, and she found a lot of value in that for these groups. With that said, finding individual support as well as the couple familial support, I think is huge, because you're approaching it from your own unique place. And yeah, so
Thank you. Yeah, I am glad we're able to add some of these additional resources. And as all of us have been saying, but I think so often folks feel so isolated in their grief, and there can be many different reasons for that. And I wanted one of the many reasons I wanted to do this panel is to remind folks not only of the wide range of resources available, the type of support folks are looking for, how to access it, knowing that whatever your grief looks like is okay, and there are services out there for folks, and I wanted to make sure that we can provide as much information and resources. And I know as a counselor is like normalizing, that process and wanting folks to feel that support and safety. And I know that some folks may only be available for this hour and have other meetings they're going to. I want to respect people's time. I'm also not trying to rush anyone, but did just want to check in if there was anyone on the live call, if there was anything else folks had questions about that we could answer right now.
Maybe I'll just say, also like, bringing it back to grief from all loss. Like, I do think that loss from death feels hugely important and like a big an area that I'm really more and more invested and involved with. But I also just anyone who's sometimes it can feel like, oh, my loss isn't gonna count. And then, it's like, oh, the thing that I'm feeling is just like a weird displacement. I don't even know what it's about. Or like people sometimes come because they're like, my body doesn't work as well as it used to. It's not terminal, it's not medical. I'm just like, what is this body? Or like I just want to reiterate that at the house, that's like our big hope, is that you'll come with whatever your grief is. Like it doesn't I do want to uncouple grief from death, like in terms of, it's okay. When we first started the project and I would talk about the grief house, which we almost didn't call it the grief house because we were worried it would be off-putting. So many people were like, oh, I've never had grief. And I thought that was such an interesting statement because, well, we've all had grief, but I think what they were saying is I've not had traumatic loss. So, but if you've not had traumatic loss, but you do have grief, you count. Like that wants tending. If you have grief that wants tending of any kind, we want to figure out how to tend it. And like Sasha said, if we're community made. So if there's not the thing that you want isn't there, talk to us, let's talk about how it could be.
Thank you. Serena, you unmuted. I just wanted to double check if there was anything that you wanted to share or add, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, I was just waving to bye to who was leaving in the chat.
Okay, no problem. So what I think I'll do is we'll wrap up. I know some folks maybe go into another meeting. I really, really, really cannot thank everyone enough. The panelists, the folks who attended, who asked questions. Again, this will be put on Canopy's site as a resource if anyone wants to see it later or any of that. So genuinely, thank you so much for all the panelists for attending and sharing your stories and your resources. And hopefully this was helpful to folks, and you're not alone in this process, and that you have all these connections that you can get the support that you need. So again, thank you so much for attending, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care.